We're live, episode number 1. My man Dan here. What really interested me about Dan's Tryp Report that we're going to talk about today is the interaction with entities, UFOs, aliens, that sort of stuff. There's Stephen Greer out there and Tom DeLonge, and some people think they're kooks, and to an extent I can agree with them, but with Stephen Greer, the way that they make contact with these things is they use meditation and essentially tune into a higher frequency, and that's how they're able to see this. And then Tom DeLonge says that, UFOs are always out there, but they're cloaking, and that's why we can't see them. So what I think that psychedelics do is open up the way that a receiver brings in channels. You can have basic antenna TV, or I think that that's what a standard American brain is running on. But when you take one of these plant medicines, you open it up to, basic cable, you know what I mean? And you have higher frequencies, more things coming in. And when more things are coming in, that opens you up to be able to see these UFOs or aliens or whatever's out there.
It's actually a great way to compare it.
So that being said, I was fascinated by your experience. Was it Santa Barbara?
Well, I've had multiple, but the Santa Barbara experience was pretty heavy.
Well, let's talk that. Let's start with setting dosage. So about how long ago was that?
January 14th. I have it written down on my calendar because it was so gnarly.
Yeah.
I just wrote lights in the sky on the calendar, but it was January 14th, 2021.
Okay. And that was in Santa Barbara. About what time did you take it? When things hit? And substance, of course.
It was mushrooms. They were picked from in front of the Science Center up in Oregon by my buddy who I did them with.
Yeah.
And I had told them about the lemon tech that you taught me. Mm-hmm. So we both did it with maybe 1.5 grams, maybe 2, maybe.
Yeah.
With the ice and the lemon.
And just to throw in there for those that don't know, outdoor mushrooms, so something that would have grown in Northern California in front of a science center, they're typically twice as powerful as the Psilocybin cubensis mushrooms that most people end up buying that are indoor grown stuff. So to say that you're doing 2 grams is the equivalent to somebody else having a 4-gram dose of Psilocybin cubensis. But that being said, mushrooms all have varying potency, so it is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, so 2 grams, outdoor mushrooms. Which time did you say it was?
I think we started to drink the tea around 7:30ish.
Okay. How quickly did it hit?
I started tapering off within 30 minutes. My worlds started to collide.
Yeah.
Within 30 minutes. And then we both kind of looked at each other and we took the drink in the house. And just to give you guys a view of where we were in Santa Barbara at my cannabis farm, deep in Santa Maria, in the valley of a mountain. And there's no lights. There's the house light. So we were on the mid-level of the property. And then my buddy had his camper at the top of the property, which is probably 1,000 feet of altitude that we were up. We were above the house, we were above the highway. So we kind of both looked at each other and we were like, no, let's go up there and get in the hammocks. So we cruised up and we got in the hammocks and pretty much just threw on some music. We put on a Pretty Lights playlist, lit a couple tiki torches, and just got in the hammocks. And that was 8:15.
Okay.
So 45 minutes after we had drank the tea,
yeah,
fully hitting,
yeah,
fully in it, comfortably. And like you said, I didn't even know that actually of the mushrooms are more potent from outside. I didn't even know that.
Okay.
But they were super gentle. Mm-hmm. The messages that were coming through in the beginning were just super gentle. Lots of ancient, I don't want to say Indian, but headdressy entities kind of, if that makes sense.
Okay.
But the messages were super gentle. They were super gentle. The warmth, everything about it just felt so comfortable. It wasn't that oh shit, I'm going back into it. It was just super comfortable.
Yeah.
And we were just looking up at the sky and constantly being oh my God, did you see that? What was that? That wasn't a plane. And kind of freaking ourselves out, but not freaking ourselves out, just you saw that, right? And it was a lot of that for an hour and a half, just really appreciating what's above us, mm-hmm. And then should I just dive right in?
Yeah, for sure.
So we started experiencing, better lack of terms, UFO activity. We would see a plane and you would clearly know it's a plane. And then we would see another light and it was not a plane. I haven't told this story to many people, maybe a few people, my dad, you, my wife, and your girl. Maybe one other person, like maybe. Because like what happened that night is so surreal that most people will look at me and be like, you're full of shit. But like, you know me, I'm not one to be a liar.
Right.
And like,
no reason for you to tell me.
And there's no reason for me to lie about something like this. And I've been having like, I wouldn't say weird, but like very similar things happen to me since I was a young kid. And I never really touched on it because I never really knew what it was, or I was by myself, or other people didn't see it. Like I said, I was fully peaking within like 45 minutes of doing the tea. Now, we started to have this experience around 10:15, 10:30. So hours after the tea. And I mean, you know very well that you're already coming down of that, you know, like you peak so quick that it's like for me, at least, it was like a slower slowdown of like the visuals and the messages. And it was like 10:15, and my boy Brent, who I'm with, he's in the hammock. We're like 4 feet apart. Like we're like right next to each other, and we're both facing the same way, and we're both having the same experiences. And he just goes, Dan. And I was like, no, dude, like I see it. Like right before he said Dan, I had looked over to my left, and dude, like I just shaved my arms, and like you can see the goosebumps coming up already. Like I looked to my left, and it was right across the highway. You know, like we're like 2 miles from the highway, and I look across the highway, and I look up on the hillside. Oh, well, let me backtrack like 10 minutes. Like 10 minutes before I had looked over there, we see like what seems to be like a ATV or like a side-by-side, you know, like one of those things that you could fit like 4 people in. We see this thing just like go off the road and then like start to climb up this hill. And we're like, what is this dude doing? You know, like there's a fire station right there. Like it's pretty much like private land or BLM land. And you just see this dude like trucking up the side of the mountain on this thing, going in reverse, going forward, like just doing all these erratic movements to the point where we're both like, this dude's going to fly off the side of the hill right now. So this was going on for like 10, 15 minutes. And then finally the guy gets to the peak of the mountain, does like this turnaround, and then just parks. And then what felt like a minute to 5 minutes later, Brent's like, Dan. And I look over, and as I look over and he says my name, there is like this LA Dodgers size stadium freaking ship that is like just not even like going fast, just like coming into the hill. And it's like this, I've never seen these color green before, but it's like just like glowing, like not blinking, glowing. And it comes and it stops. And dude, I'm not kidding. Like we're like at least 1.5 miles away, 2 miles away from this thing. And it stops directly over this ATV. We thought it was an ATV, you know, like the movements it was driving like a car or whatever. So I don't know. It seemed like it was like maybe like a couple 100 feet above it, maybe higher. But this thing started to blast this green light down on this vehicle for like a solid 30 seconds. Maybe it was longer. Like time in that moment was just stopped. Like our jaws were dropped. Like we weren't talking to each other. My cell phone was literally like 2 inches away from me, to the point where like I could have picked it up, but I was just so blown away that we're watching this unfold in front of our eyes, you know, like I've had experiences before, but not like this. So this thing is like blasting this out of worldly, like slime green, like color that I've never seen before, just beaming this vehicle for what seemed like a solid minute. So it beams the vehicle, and then the beam goes up, and then the ship just like flies off. And we jumped out of the hammocks, and we're just watching this thing fly off in the distance, like towards, you know, the other side of the Grapevine on the 5 up in Northern California, to the point where like it's gone. We watched it disappear. As soon as it disappears, this vehicle that was driving like a regular car all of a sudden gets this golden light and just starts hovering. And the golden light is like so bright. I don't even think like I've seen anything in a movie or anything comparable to the brightness of this gold that was blasting out of whatever this was. It wasn't At that point, we realized it wasn't a car because it's hovering the hillside. So we're watching this thing like do the same movements that it was doing when it was driving, but now it's hovering and it's turning and like doing all these movements and like blasting this light into the hillside. And then, you know, mind you, we have tiki torches lit and it's like so dark in this valley. So this is going on for like 20 minutes, it seemed.
Any sound associated with
No
it?
sound.
Okay.
No sound. There were no planes. There was nothing happening in that moment. And even that ship, like it was dead silent. Like everything about this whole scenario was dead silent the whole entire time till to the end of the story. So we're like, all right, whatever, dude. Like, let's just go lay back in the hammocks, you know? We're still like tinkering in that world of mushrooms, obviously. But we weren't tripping. Like I had full control. Like I wasn't closing my eyes and going and digging deep into like another realm or anything anymore. Like I was grounded. So we get back in the hammocks like little kids, you know, like we're just like, we don't know what's going on. So we get back in the hammocks and I'm not going to lie. Like I say I was a little nervous, you know? So like I take the hammock and like wrap myself with it and just like have my head sticking out. And I'm watching this thing hover along the hillside. And I look over at Brent and I'm like, yo, dude, like we can obviously see this thing. Do you think it could see us? And dude, I'm not even playing. Like 1 minute after I said that, this thing starts to move into our valley. Like it's not doing its motions anymore. It's like hovering into our valley. And then now it's like beaming this light on our hillside, which was like maybe 1,000 feet away from us.
Did it seem like a flashlight, like it was beaming, like it was looking around at things, or?
Kind of, but it was so bright that like, it's like even the most advanced headlight isn't even like, it was so bright and it was gold. It was a golden light. So it's hovering the hillside and we don't even know what it's doing. It's just, it's like, it's doing these hovering movements side to side, up and down, turning. And I was like, yo, B, like this thing's close, dude. Like this thing's really close. And then the closer it got, the more my world started to drown out and completely trance out, I guess you could say, to the point where I didn't have control of my thoughts and like what was going on in that moment. I was in the hammock and that was like my grounding point, but I didn't have control. Like all of a sudden I started to tinker off into that other realm of not having control, you know, like where you shut your eyes and things just come to you, but there was nothing there. It was just like blank. So this thing's hovering about 1,000 feet from us. Again, I'm like, yo, B, this thing's got to see us, dude. And then it seemed like at the same time, both of us went into this trance. Like it scanned our hillside and then turned around and the light was like, we were looking like right into the light of whatever this was, this craft, whatever it was. It was hovering, it was flying. So the light is like kind of beaming towards us. Like there was nothing on us that was like, you could see the light, but it was towards us. But then it started to hover towards us. And we both went into a trance. Me personally, when I was in that trance, I had like a vision of this thing hovering towards us. Like, so it cruised over the house. Like I said, we were like 1,000 feet up. You had to drive up this huge steep road to get up top. And like, we have greenhouses. We had a shit ton of weed growing. We had like 20,000 marijuana plants growing legally. So there was a lot of powerful energy there, you know, like the both of us were sharing this experience. And then you have all these cannabis plants that have a lot of energy to them. So I was in a trance, but it seemed like this thing had come up the hill and was like over our greenhouses. And in that trance, I had a vision of us getting scared, literally like jumping out of the hammocks and running into his camper and just like watching this UFO or these entities like in our garden. Now that I'm talking about it, like I actually never really like, you know, like I've talked to you about it, but I'm trying to really replay it. In that moment, we're like both looking out and like, you know, a bunch of holy shits, a bunch of holy fucks, like, dude, what's going on? Like, just, we don't have control over anything. And then my memory kind of just like, my mind just went blank for I don't even know how long. By the time I looked at my phone after all of this, it was like 11:30, and I'll get to that, but I come out of this trance because I keep hearing my name in the distance, almost like you're at the end of a tunnel and someone's like, Dan, Dan. And then finally it was like, Dan. And I was like, I like jumped up and like, we're in hammocks, mind you. So I look up and he's like, bro, you're seeing what I'm seeing, right? And obviously my buddy Brent had come out of the trance before I was out of the trance, but like we're both staring up at this translucent triangular UFO. It's nothing else. It's like, it's a freaking UFO, dude. And we're both just staring up at this thing. And it didn't have golden lights on it anymore. Like, from what I remember, like there were red lights on the bottom, nothing else. And you could see the stars on the other side of this thing. And this thing was like the size of our houses, dude. Like it was huge and it was triangular. And it was just sitting there above us. What seemed like a couple hundred feet, 500 feet, maybe 1,000. Like it was so close to the point where we're looking through this ship. We were just like dead ass silent, like kept looking at each other, looking at it, looking at each other. And it just like started to slowly creep away. And then as it started to creep away, we both got out of our hammocks and like went to the corner of the trellis and just watched this thing. Like it didn't take form of like any color. Like it was translucent until we couldn't see it anymore. Mm-hmm. And then this thing just took off like quickly. No sound, nothing. No other drugs, no other nothing, just the tea. And this is like, I looked at my phone like a couple minutes after like it finally was out of our sight, and it's like 11:30 at night. And we drank the tea at 7:30.
Yeah, I mean, that being said is, although you wouldn't have been at a peak by then, you still very much can, if we're talking cloaking and being able to see through a cloaking situation, you're at this timeline, you are still under some influence of psilocybin. You know what I mean?
For sure.
By no means at the peak, but if what we're talking about here is the potential to be able to uncloak something that's cloaked, you're still in that timeline that when you came back to, you were able to see it. Because, again, if you weren't on any sort of psilocybin, would you have just been hanging out in a hammock and not seen any of that? And my question, too, is, you know, that light that you saw, is that also a cloaked light? You know what I mean? So it's like other people wouldn't have seen it shining anywhere anyway, because that might have been some other frequency that who knows what it was scanning for.
Yep.
But that frequency of light that you saw was also cloaked to the normal eye, not to somebody who was enhanced, to say.
Yep. And it's like, at the end of the day, it was just us two.
Yeah.
You know, rewind a few months, maybe like a handful of months, to July 27th, there was 1, 2, 3, 4. There's about 5 of us that ate mushrooms. And to be honest, we smoked a DMT blunt. Like we smoked a blunt with weed in it, with some DMT in it. And we were all experiencing like some weird things going on in the sky. You know, like ships and UFOs and other things. Like there were 5 of us that time. But it was more of like a quick visual thing. Mm-hmm. And we were smoking a blunt of DMT, so it's like, you know, were they there, or was that just the experience of the dimethyltryptamine in the blunt?
Yeah.
Very well could have been. But this experience, months later, both of us, same spot, not as much drugs, way more intensified.
Yeah.
And the fact that we both went into a trance at the same time, to the point where like there were no words spoken or anything. Since I was young, my dad's been teaching me breath work. And that's the only thing that I felt while being in that trance was my breath. Like the fact that I was still breathing. Mm-hmm. That's the only thing that I had control over, was my breath. I don't know if we were, like a lot of people think this is crazy. I don't know if we were taken onto that ship and that's why we couldn't think or have control over anything. But like a lot of the stuff I've researched is when you're in the presence of these entities or UFOs, like odds are you're under some type of trance to where you can't do anything.
Right. So you said that you had a visual of being down at the trailer and witnessing the entities going through the farm.
Well, the trailer was like 2 feet away from the hammocks.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
So did your buddy have any, in that trance, have any experience similar to that? Or has he even talked about it?
Like we've talked about it. Like the next morning we woke up and he came down to the house. Like, you know, it was like rewind after this all happens. Like we were like, all right, like let's smoke a little bit, calm down. And then, you know, maybe change the playlist a little bit or something. So we smoked, put on a different Pretty Lights playlist, and then went back in the hammocks and pretty much hung out until like 2:00 in the morning. Still experiencing like movements in the sky, nothing like what we just went through. But it got to a point where like, all right, dude, like I'm gonna head to sleep. Like we got to wake up and do work in the morning. So he came down to the house, and like as soon as he walked in the house, like he came over to me and I was like, dude, like, are you good? He's like, yeah, I'm good. You know, like we were both really tired, both mentally strained, you know, and I was like, that happened, right, bro? And he looked at me and like didn't even smile. He was like, oh no, bro, that fucking happened.
Yeah.
Whatever we experienced, yes, it happened. Me and him got really close. Like we both met in Vermont, but like being on this farm together, like we both got close. So like we both gave each other a hug and we were like, dude, like whatever the reason was, like we both experienced that. Let's just take that and just hold that, you know, like whatever energy that was, whatever we experienced, like there was a reason why we experienced it. There was a reason why we're still here. The fact that we can sit here and talk about it and realize that we saw what we saw and still go over and play through this whole thing, like that's a lot. Like a lot of people don't even realize what they went through sometimes with all this stuff. The fact is, like, we've talked about it maybe like a couple times since then. And I asked him, I was like, dude, I remember telling you like that I had this vision of us being in the trailer. And he was like, honestly, bro, like I was in such a trance. Like, I think we ran into the trailer, you know, but like we ran into the trailer, but like, how did we end up back in the hammocks? At what point did we both look at each other and go back into the hammocks? The thing was, the more we replayed it, he was like, I felt like I was dropped back into my hammock, and that's what woke me up. And then that's when I looked up and saw the ship, and then that's when I screamed your name, Dan. Me, I was like just so in my breath work that like when I woke up, I was literally like just looking up at this cloaked triangular ship.
Yeah.
That was insanely huge. So we both kind of had the same experience, but like it was different in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, it's still so vivid. I mean, this was coming up on January. This is going to be 2 years now.
Yeah.
I've always asked myself, like, why did it happen that night? Or like, why January 14th? Like, dude, I've constantly gone on Google and like typed in that date, typed in Santa Barbara, because there's a lot of UFO activity in San Luis Obispo area. And like, there's a famous story like Betty and something. I forgot.
Hill?
Barney. Yes, Betty and Barney Hill.
Barbara?
That was San Luis Obispo.
Okay.
San Luis Obispo is like 25 minutes away from where the farm was. Very same experience with these people that they had, you know, like very similar light and everything. But I mean, still to this day, I'll go on Google sometimes and like type in those dates and like see if there's a form or something and see if anyone else seen it. Cause it was only 10 o'clock at night when we started to get into this experience.
Yeah. Because how secluded is the farm? Is there a lot of other places around that may have seen something like that?
There's, so like you pull off, just to give you a general idea of where you are, you're driving up the 1 and it was an exit in Santa Maria off the 1 and it was like maybe a 20-minute drive to the property. So
you're not that far.
Like 15 miles off the freeway or something, you know, 10, 15 miles off the freeway. But there's a house in the front. There's the fire station directly across the street where this whole thing happened above it on the hillside. And then there's houses everywhere. But the houses are like maybe like a mile and a half down the freeway, the highway that we were off of. And then everyone else that lived in the valley, there's like maybe 2 houses past the farm on our road. It was like a private road that was gated. And those dudes are like, respectfully, like big alcoholics, like hunters and cattlemen. And they just get drunk and they're passed out. They don't, the one guy, Greg's like, you know, I've been up here for 20 years and, you know, I've seen some weird shit, but who knows what it is. So, you know, we asked those guys like, hey, did you guys see anything weird last night? And they're like, no, man, just, you know, just normal stuff. But yeah, nobody else really on our street or anything experienced it or whatnot, you know. Yeah. Thinking like there had to have been like someone driving down the highway or something, and no, nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. So for whatever reason, we both experienced it. No one else saw it. I almost like wish someone else saw it so I could have like clarity in myself that it happened. But I'm at a point in my life where it's like, no, that shit happened. I've been way more into a mushroom journey and still have had control over things. And like, I was nowhere near the point of being at that level of like where I've gotten to in my mushroom journeys before, you know?
Yeah.
To where it's like, I don't really have control when I close my eyes. Like I was in control the whole time.
Did you have any psilocybin experiences on that property afterwards? Do you have any fear about doing them again there? I mean,
Did we go back?
Was it a scary thing to you, or was it a?
No, that's the thing. Like whatever we experienced in that time, like I was saying in the beginning, like the type he grabbed from the science center were, what were they?
Cyanescence?
They were cyanescence.
Yeah.
And they were super gentle. I don't know why, because like some people were like, dude, I had such a bad experience on it, and like they were. It was one of the best trips I've had besides the experience I've shared with you. Mm-hmm. Just the messages I got were like super gentle and everything. So I wasn't scared. It was more of like the only part that was like scary was when I came out of the trance and we watched the ship go away. Cause I'm like, I looked at my phone at like 10 o'clock when we saw this thing beaming light, and like now it's 11:30. What happened in the last hour and a half?
Yeah.
That's the thing that kind of freaked me out.
What are your...
I went into that, dude, like at 2 o'clock when I was like, yo, B, I'm going to sleep. Dude, I went right down to the house, ripped my clothes off in the bathroom. I was like inspecting my whole body, looking, like trying to find like something.
Yeah.
Like I was so intrigued and scared at that moment in time that like I was trying to find something, a mark, a burn, something.
Would you ever consider trying hypnosis to see if you could find what happened in that hour? Or is that a terrifying thought too, of like bringing up whatever may have been buried?
So not to like go off on a totally different tangent into another story, but an extremely long story short, back in 2013, I went to Michigan for Electric Forest Festival. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of drugs being taken that weekend. I did a decent amount of acid. I didn't eat any mushrooms, actually. I did a bunch of acid and a bunch of Molly. And it was the last night. And holy shit, this just hit me. We were going to see freaking Pretty Lights. He was closing the festival and we were going to see Pretty Lights. I dropped a tab with my buddies. You know, it was a pretty decent sized tab. And then I kind of like left my group and went off with this girl and her friends. We were sharing a drink, and like, I don't know if she had like, what's that stuff called? Like what's the stuff that like lifters use? Starts with a G, maybe?
GABA?
I forgot, dude. I forgot the name of it, but like, I don't know. I was like sharing her drink and I thought maybe she might've had something in it, and I started to feel a little weird. So I was like, hey, like, you know, thanks. Like, appreciate you. They were our tent mates. They were like right next to us. So, I don't want to go too far into this story, but I left them, went back to my friends, and, I was with like my friends I grew up with, like in my hometown. We all went together. My buddy has a cane and he's like, hey dude, like, I know you guys are, you know, in your world right now. Like the crowd's going to get crazy, you know, like it's Pretty Lights. Like it was the closer of the festival. So he's like, I'm right here. Like if you guys need me, just come. Like me and Emily, we're chilling right here. Just come get us. And this was another experience I had. We're in the crowd and like Pretty Lights comes on, and it is the most epic experience that I've ever had at a concert. This dude's light show, his music, everything he does, he doesn't perform anymore, just to let people know, you know. He hasn't performed, I think, like, that might have been, like, one of his last performances. If not, the next performance was Red Rocks. Like, it was right around there when he stopped his career of touring. It was, like, right around that same year. So it was pretty cool to see one of his last shows. But we're in the crowd, and my buddy puts a bunch of Moon Rock Molly in my mouth. And literally, like, shuts my mouth and is, like, making me chew this shit without me like asking for it or anything. He just came up. This is my buddy I grew up with. So I'm on a decent amount of drugs, but the show is insane. Everything's going on. And then to make this story, it's a really long story and I'm going to cut it like really in half. Everything started to hit me. And these two guys came up to me in the crowd, and dude, they were like, you know, I don't even know, dude. Like they had all these like crazy colors on and like these glasses, and they came up to me and like come up like really weird. Like it almost looked like they floated up to me. And at that point, it was almost like I was like a pinball machine, and like everything just like went away from me. But these two dudes came up to me and they were like, we want your energy. Like, is it cool if we hang out with you? I'm like, yeah, bro, totally. You know, like I'm vibing, I'm watching the show, I'm with my friends. And they're like, dude, this guy's energy's crazy. Like, this guy's energy's crazy. And then he's like, try these on. And it's a pair of sunglasses. So like, I put these sunglasses on, bro. And like, it took me into another world. You could call me crazy, whatever, dude. Like, I put these sunglasses on and my whole world changed. Like, I was not at that concert anymore. I was like floating through the crowd like a pinball, dude. Like, just like separating crowds. Like, dude, there's like 90,000 people watching this guy. And we're like 20 feet from the front of the stage. And somehow I'm able to like deter this whole crowd. The guy's like, I need those glasses back, bro. I need those glasses back. So like, I just take them off. I give them to him. And he's like, they just disappear. Like, I look around and like my friends are still there. I'm like, did you guys see those dudes? He was like, yeah, I tried those glasses on, bro. I could only keep them on for a second. He's like, you had them on for like 10 minutes. And I was like, I don't even know, dude. Like, this is crazy. Like, whatever. Cut to, I like randomly start making out with this girl. And my friends are watching me make out with this chick. And they said that out of nowhere, I pushed the girl away from me and then came back to them. And then I came back to them and my buddy like grabbed my shoulders and he's like, dude, are you okay? And I grabbed my boy and I like bunny hugged him and just took him down to the ground and walked him as hard as I can. He's like, Izzo, dude, let go, bro. I can't breathe. And like, I just had him locked. Like, I was clearly like messed up, you know? Something happened and I realized what I was doing. I was like, holy shit, Alan, I'm so sorry, dude. He's like, bro, what is wrong with you? I was like, dude, I'm sorry. He's like, bro, let's just rage. Like, let's just enjoy the show. I'm like, all right. So like, whatever. I go back, we're enjoying the show. And, you know, to finish the story, my other boy, Mikey, grabs my shoulders again. And like, it like made me like flip a switch. I grabbed his shoulders and I started running my homie through the crowd, but I was holding his shoulders and his feet were not on the ground. And I was running him through the crowd. And then this was the last thing I remember. I threw him to the ground and then they said I was gone. Like, they said I was gone. The crowd kind of like opened up and closed and I was gone. And like, I was with like 10 people. They all looked for me. They went to every medical tent. They seen dudes like overdosing. They like thought one of them was me. And like, they went to the Michigan State Police. And like, mind you, this festival, the acreage of the festival was completely fenced in and there was barbed wire on top of the fence. Everywhere you could have gotten out, there was a state trooper. Like, they made it so safe and secure because there's people that live around there, you know? To end the story, I wake up in a field. This happened at like 11:45. My friends said like I freaked out and, you know, carried my boy through the crowd and just like disappeared. I woke up around like 2:30 in the morning on my back like I had just been defibrillated. Like, I woke up like it took me like 2-3 minutes to actually start breathing. I was on my back. I had my Camelback, no shirt on, bandana, sunglasses still in my bandana. I remember I had like these blue and black Adidas shoes on and I was just looking up at the sky. So I come to and I have no memory. So I start walking and I just like get up and I'm walking through this pasture, like literally in the middle of Michigan, just walking through this pasture, no idea who I am. So I start walking and I see a light. So I start walking through the light and like I'm walking through this field and it's got like all those little prickly things on my shoes, you know? And I come to a street and there's this couple sitting in foldable chairs at the end of their driveway. And I walk up to them and they're like, hey, how's it going? You know? And I'm like, hey, you know, it's okay. Like, where am I? They're like, you're in Rothbury, Michigan. I'm like, who am I? They're like, we don't know. Like, I was like, well, what am I doing here? And they're like, well, maybe you came from that festival. So in that moment in time, I turn around and I look and like, dude, we're miles away from the festival. And like, you can see the lights in the sky. And I just started to bolt. Like, something in me, I just started to run full speed. Dude, I ran full speed back to the festival. It took me like 25 minutes. Full speed. Faster than I've ever ran in my entire life. And I'm running on this gravel road. It's like the back way into the festival. As I'm running, all of a sudden my brain turns on like a computer. and I just start to get these like codes. And then all of a sudden I stop getting these codes and I start getting knowledge of who I am. I'm like, I'm Dan Izzo. I ride BMX bikes. My mother and father is, you know, I have a sister, I have a dog, you know, and then I start running and, you know, just to get into more detail, I start like, you know, what fuels me? And I'm like, money. Like money fuels me. Like weed, girls, bikes. I mean, I'm like 25 years old at the time, you know? So like, I'm just going through it and like realizing who I am in this life at that time. And it's all being downloaded again. And then it seems like 25 minutes I'm running, you know, I was a few miles away. And then by the time I get to the back gate, I can literally see Grizz, the electronic artist, Grizz, on stage performing. And I'm backstage. I'm like behind the hall stage. Like there's roadies, there's like all sorts of shit. And like I come up to the gate and the guy had a green neon shirt on. I go to open the gate. He's like, whoa, 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 whoa. I'm like, no, dude, like I'm from the festival. He's like, well, I've been here all night. Like, how did you get past me? And the gate was like open, like just perfectly to the point where I was like, well, I guess you're fast enough to catch me. And like, I dipped past the dude and just started running as fast as I could back to the campground. I was scared shitless, dude. I didn't know what happened to me. I didn't know what was going on, but like I was scared. So I just ran so far, so fast back to the campground. It took me like 15 minutes to get through the Hall Festival because it's like in the forest. And there were like 15 different stages and like all these different things and vendors and everything. So like I am just bolting. And it's the end of the festival. Like the festival's over in 2 hours and everyone's leaving. To finish the story, I get back to the campsite and my buddy with the cane is sitting there crying, bro. I walk up, I was like, yo, he's like, bro, like, holy shit, dude, like, what the fuck? And I'm like, dude, I'm so sorry. I don't want to talk about it. Like, I don't know where I went. I'm here. I'm okay. I'm safe. And I'm really sorry. And he's like, bro, I thought we were going to have to go home and like pretty much tell your parents that you were gone. We looked for you for 4 hours, bro. Every medical tent, like everything. So the thing with that is I was in a trance-like state from like 11:30 until 2:30 in the morning. I don't know how it happened. I don't know. I didn't see any lights. I didn't see anything, nothing. But when I was in that trance state, it was just a bunch of bright lights. And like my father came through to me. And this was like hours that I was in this trance. My father came through to me, you know, like people in my life that had passed had come through to me and just kept telling me to just keep going and that everything was going to be okay. And like people were calling my name. And this whole time that I was sitting there, it was like there were these huge trees or like these huge entities just standing over me. And like essentially what it felt like I was being guarded. Like when I think back, it was like I was tied down or like I didn't have control. I was completely not in control of my body, but like it was a very soft voice like saying, just calm down, everything's gonna be okay. In that time, like I said, my dad came through to me and he's like, this is what it is. He's like, this is it, you know? And I was like, holy shit, like, am I dying right now? Am I dead? Fact is, I woke up like I was dead. You know, I couldn't breathe. It was like I was brought back to life or something. So to go back, like this whole crazy story I just got into was the hypnosis part. I had the chance to go into hypnosis with my friend's mom, who's a hypnosis therapist. And she said she would do it for free to me because she was one of 3 people I told that story about. Obviously, I told it to my buddy that was at the campsite waiting, hysterical crying for me. I told him, told my dad, and I told her. And she was like, I would love to do a hypnosis session with you if you would ever want to do it. And I almost did it, and I was fucking scared, dude.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, like, and I'm not going to lie, like, I'm still pretty nervous to do that session with that experience that happened in 2013. Cause like the stuff that happened to me in Santa Barbara, like I experienced it. I saw it. I felt it. Like it was only an hour and a half of a trance. Like, you know, like I shared it with someone else and we both had the same experience. And, you know, like if I was going to do a hypnosis with that, like I think I'd probably do that one first. But now that I'm sitting here talking with you, like I almost want to, for my own self, go back into a hypnosis therapist and go into that situation that I had in Michigan. Mm-hmm. Because I really think that it was outer worldly things that whether I had too much drugs in my system, like I firmly believe in like a galactic family, you know, like I was raised very spiritual, like, and I really do believe that like we have a galactic signature that we all hold and that we are connected to a higher realm of galactic beings, you know. That's just my personal point of view, my opinion. It's also my dad's, you know, so I'd love to do it. Like, I'm still scared to do it, but like, I think now that I just sat here and like had this whole story and this whole talk with you, like, I think that I would probably go and do that first.
Yeah.
And then go do because there could, to me, it hit me as I was talking about the Pretty Lights playlist, that the fact that we experienced this experience in Santa Barbara to this dude Derek's music, and then I experienced it in Michigan to his music live, it's like there's a pattern there. You know, there's clearly a pattern there, you know. And the next morning after the Santa Barbara experience, me and my boy B were talking, and I even said to him, I'm like, what if Pretty Lights, the dude Derek, is not from this world? Because like you've heard that guy's music. Like some of you're like, dude, where is like, what are these sounds? Like, what are these sounds, dude? Like, where do all this come from? You know, and like even some of his songs sound like you're listening to like this code. There's just so much detail in his music, and he doesn't perform anymore. The guy is like a goat in the electronic music industry. His music is like, it's going to live on forever. Like, I still listen to all his albums almost every day. But why isn't he performing anymore? Is he some higher entity that was here to give people knowledge through his music to get to a higher realm or whatever? I don't know, but like me and my buddy were talking, like it has to be that way. Like it has to be, because the dude disappeared. You go on his Instagram, hasn't posted a picture since like 2013, 14, 15 maybe, or whatever. Nothing on the internet, nothing, like nothing. Dude's gone. No like tour dates, no new music, nothing. The last album that he produced was right before that festival I went to. That was the last music he made. So that, to me, there's a pattern in that music and my experiences.
Yeah. I've said it before. I think the reason that electronic music is so fascinating while on psychedelics is because when you look at the healing that shamans do in Peru and everything, it's always the Icaros that they sing, and they're using frequency and vibration to heal. And so I think that's where I've had so many interesting downloads in like the psilocybin realm specifically with electronic music, because the frequencies are everywhere. You know, it's not just a guitar, it's not just a drum, it's not just a piano. There's so many different frequencies and vibrations and bass lines and everything else that I think that that's the key to purging trauma or all these different things that go on, is the different frequencies and vibrations that go through you. And so when you have some of these songs that are 5 minutes long but seem like they're 4 hours long because of the ups and the downs and the lows and the highs and the drops and all that kind of stuff, it really does feel like you're on some kind of like hour-long journey in 5 minutes. And so it's, I mean, I know that some people just aren't into music when they're in these experiences, but to me, I've had like the most downloads while experiencing the widest variety of things. So then, you know, poses the question of, because I always had that thought, like when I'm listening to these things in a different realm, like, how did they come up with this? You know what I mean? Like, did they come up with this just for this? Is this created for healing or accessing the other side? And, you know, someone who has never experienced it while on some sort of entheogen, to them, it's just weird robot sounds. You know what I mean? It's like, I've heard like everybody that gave me shit for it at work would be like, oh, you listen to robot sex music. And I was like, but you just don't understand what this stuff is capable of. And like, I get that to the average listener, it might just be weird, but when you're tuned in and you're in that music and the synesthesia kicks in, it's something else. And so, yeah, it's very bizarre that this dude dropped off the face of the planet. Like, did he unlock some gate, you know what I mean, through producing this music?
There are those goosebumps again, because we said the same thing, dude. You know, like, did he come here And that was his mission. And he's like, okay, I'm good. You know, like, and bro, let me just, you go to his albums and you look at the names of his songs, you're just like, this dude's not from here. You know, like a lot of his songs are just finally moving. And what's the,
or is he from here and he unlocked the gateway to the other side and
through
was
making
able
his
to
music
produce that? Because that's the thing is, there are so many people that say the muse, or that you bring the downloads through from the other side to produce creativity in this world. And I always think of the artist H.R. Geiger, who created like the Alien and Species and that kind of stuff. And it's like really dark, weird biometric stuff. And it's fascinating. But basically when he was in an interview, he said, these things haunt my dreams. Like he had tapped into this biomechanical world that Alien came out of, you know, a horror movie that has gone down as one of the gnarliest horror movies of all time. And he said that stuff haunts his dreams, and that for him to be able to calm those from coming through, he has to put them on paper.
Wow.
To show them to everybody else. So it's like, there's darkness that comes through too. And so it's, you know, what did this guy did he feel complete that he put out all the messages that came through? Is he scared from the messages that came through and was like, I can't make this anymore?
I mean, dude, his last album he dropped, I think, is called The Color of My Soul.
Yeah.
That was his last album he put out.
Well, I even think of Davey Havok from AFI. He had always said that it was all of the lyrics that came out of him were just like getting anger and stuff out, that it was like he would purge it out. And he basically said, I don't even like to perform this stuff again. Like everybody wants to hear the old stuff, and you know, their older stuff was more punk rock, more hardcore, heavier screaming. And he's basically been like, I don't even like, I'm done with that. I got that out of me. I don't like to perform that anymore.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to hear somebody like take something, you know, to put out some anger that was inside from the muse and release it in some way that we consider art. And I never thought about it in the way that, like, I would love to know, did he finish because he felt complete? Did he finish because he felt like he tapped into something that he didn't want to go any deeper into?
Or one thing that we talked about too was like, did he finish because they made him finish? They were like, no more music.
Yeah.
This is too powerful.
No more downloads. Like it was like, you know, he had the creativity come in. Did he get writer's block because he put out everything he was supposed to put out?
Because like, and you know, like whoever listens to this, do yourself a favor and go like watch some of his live stuff on YouTube, because this guy did his own light show. This guy did his own light show and performed. So he's synthesizing all this music and making the light show. And dude, like if you're sober, the light show is enough to make you feel like you're in another realm. Yeah. If you're sober, the guy's powerful and extremely talented to the point where no one has touched him yet at that level of doing a light show and creating music at the same exact time. Yeah. To this day, no one's touched him with that.
That, you know, that's one of the things that came through in that 5-MeO experience of mine recently, is that, you know, it's easy to sit back and say like this world is overpopulated and people are scumbags, and see like all the negative and darkness that exists in this world. But what kind of came to me from the 5-MeO was that like this world is interesting because we are all so different and so creative. You know what I mean? Like just there's the argument can be made that, you know, cell phones are ruining people and their ability to focus, but I think our life is so much more interesting because we have access to all of this information and everything at the touch of our hands, and to be able to listen to crazy music out of you know what I mean? You remember going to buy a CD somewhere and like that kind of deal?
The wall.
Yeah. And it's like now you have every single album in that music store and then some in your pocket and updated daily. So we are living in an awesome place because of the creativity of others. And if we didn't have those people, you know, if we were reduced to a population of 100,000 or something like that across this world, it'd be a pretty boring place. You know what I mean? And so I don't know, that's kind of what it showed me, is like to embrace the creativity that everybody offers, and to see what's in everybody that they can add to my life, to this world, that kind of thing, and not just see the negative things that are.
Yeah, man. You know, like I firmly believe that we're all here and everyone has their own purpose, but Like, we're all here to help each other. And it seems like that egg is getting cracked open more and more as we move forward. There's more mental awareness. There's more, like you said, the 5-MeO, practices and just things, because mental health is so messed up right now. I struggle from it. I know many people struggle from it. It's there. And it's something that's not talked about.
That's one of the main reasons this podcast is being started, is because, not everybody has some level of trauma in their life, and most people, maybe you could argue everybody has some level of mental health that they're assessing. But, I'm coming through this from a veteran perspective, and it's scary to me how many veterans, we're at a point now where the suicide rate is so much higher than, more veterans have lost their lives to suicide than all of the Middle Eastern wars combined. So it's,
That's insane.
It's disgusting. You know what I mean? It's for the government to put so much money into training somebody to become a killer, but put no effort into fixing them afterwards. It scares me. I mean, really, that's what it comes down to. And so it's I think that there's so many good conversations to have amongst other friends who have found these plant medicines, but I'm really interested to have the veterans get their word out there, because I think there are so many veterans that aren't willing, that have that mindset of, I'm too tough, I'll get through this and whatever, and aren't willing to show emotion. And those are the things, that the barriers that we need to break down. And I'm hoping that these conversations can open more people up to interest in, trying to help themselves.
I mean, dude, like, you gotta feel those emotions. You gotta be vulnerable enough to talk about it, because that's what really messes people up, is the fact that they're like, no, dude, I'm hard. Like, no, you're not, because the fact is, if you were hard, you'd be able to talk about your mental struggles.
Exactly.
Because if you don't, they're going to bury you, sadly.
Yeah.
And it's not like the military with PTSD is horrible, but like, a lot of people don't realize, like, dude, you could get PTSD from anything.
Absolutely.
And like, so many people have it and don't even know that they have it until it's too late.
Right.
Especially BMX riders.
Yeah.
Especially extreme sports athletes, fighters, NFL players. The
TBI stuff.
The TBI stuff is like, all that stuff is real, and it's so new. We're like only like a handful of years into TBI research.
Yeah.
Right after what was his name? Junior Seau, the like one of the first dudes. So.
Yeah, and it's I was never straight up diagnosed from the VA as having TBI, but it's, again, they say that even riding a jet ski is enough slap in the water to give yourself a TBI. And so, I mean, even BMX aside, and just normal lifestyle aside, the thing that I'm confident gave me some level of TBI was, I wasn't fortunately blown up over there. I wasn't in any IEDs or anything like that, rolling over in Humvees, but the prison that I was working in was next to an artillery cannon. So every time we took mortar fire on base, that thing returned fire. And the explosion that sent to fire those artillery shells out, you could feel your teeth rattle in your jaw. And it was like, if it can do that, it can give you TBI. You know what I mean? And it was like, after every mortar that came in, at least 10 shells went out for it. So, and it was one of those things where, when you're at fireworks or something like that, the first one will go off and then your startle response is okay. You can sit through the rest of them and hear the explosions and you're cool because you've programmed to it. The concussion from this cannon was so gnarly that not only would but I could watch everybody in the prison, prisoners, other guards alike. Every time it went off, you saw everybody jump and shudder because like it was so gnarly, you couldn't get used to it. And so it's like, for that to go minimum 10 times a day for 3 months straight, like that's not doing you any favors.
Yeah.
So it's, I mean, like, I think that there are so many people that experience TBI and don't even think about it. And, that's why all of this research is so fascinating, because we're finding different things that promote neurogenesis and can actually heal that brain before things get too far south. And like, coming back to a BMX thing, I don't know if you've seen the most recent, there was a upload on YouTube talking about Dave Mira, and they essentially, I've heard other issues from people in the BMX world, but they basically said it came down to TBI. And like, I guess they did do autopsy afterwards that verified that Dave Mirra did have TBI.
Yeah.
But, you know, he was the dude. You know what I mean? He's why I ride BMX.
Yeah.
And,
A lot of us,
it took out a hero like that. So
Yeah.
it's, this stuff's real. And like I said, I'm glad that you're able to talk about this, and, you know, hopefully we can get this message a little bit further, one person at a time.
And that's what it is, bro. You know, that it's just got to be talked about more.
Yeah.
You know, because like losing friends is one thing, but you know, seeing the world go through all this, it's just getting worse. You know, like, and just like you said, social media, unless you use it as a tool, it messes a lot of people up.
Oh yeah.
You know, and the amount of dopamine that gets released when you get that instant gratification and that addictiveness. I mean, it's like, it's a form, like it's messing up your brain. It's messing with you, you know? There's just so many aspects. I mean, I could literally talk about it for hours, because I think it's, you know, I think it's extremely intriguing. And my dad right now is doing so much with brain health and everything. And I was talking to my dad the other day, like, I'd love to create a product. You know, there's not really a product out there for athletes like that helps with, there's a lot of nootropics out there, but there's nothing out there that really helps with all this stuff. My dad works with like all these nutraceutical companies. I was like, wouldn't it be like an awesome thing to just create some type of vitamin that you can take every day to curb all these feelings? You know, like there's got to be something out there that works with your receptors and works with your brain and helps that heal. Like
they're called psychedelic drugs.
You know, yes.
They exist. We're just not allowed to use them.
You know, yeah, exactly. Like, and that's what I referred to him as. Like, there has to be some other chemical out there that can be created in a lab, or like an ingredient or something like that you could create, that you could take to help with that. There has to be, you know?
And that's why research needs to be open to these things, and they shouldn't be Schedule I, is because if you can isolate the compounds that do the neuroprotection or something, or that build new brain connections and cells and that kind of stuff, I think there's a lot of different things you can do. Because think about, you know, in general, your pupils dilating when you're on these things. Like if you had your eyes dilated for like eye exams before, it's horrific. You know what I mean? You can't read your phone, like everything, it hurts.
Yeah, it's horrible
to look at but when you're tripping, it's awesome to look at things.
Yeah.
And the light doesn't bother you or anything else. So
that's crazy.
If they
actually
can isolate whatever it is that, you know, that makes your pupils dilate like that without it sucking, that's something else that could be taken out of these things.
Yep.
So I think there's a lot to learn.
It's a great point.
Yeah. Well, shit, man, we hit over an hour.
Yeah, man.
I didn't expect it to go past 20 minutes.
That was awesome, dude.
Yeah, rad conversation.
That was awesome.
Let's go ride some kids' bikes.
I'm down, dude.
All right, man.
That was great. Thank you.